So yesterday I talked a lot, as I usually do. One of the reasons is because I'm getting old, or I am old. And when you're old, you tend to talk a lot. You can't. Your legs get weaker, your arms get weaker, your ears, you've got to strain to hear. You can't see, you need glasses. But the one thing which always gets stronger as you get older is your mouth. And that applies to monks as well. But one of the nice things about meditation is you don't have to speak. You don't even have to make up ideas or thoughts. You don't have to write anything. Just become like passive. And that passive is a beautiful idea. There's one of the similes which you find it in the book Mindfulness, Bliss and Beyond. The Singaporeans changed the title of that to Happiness Through Meditation. And when I first put it into that book, the editor said, "No, we don't want this in the book." And I totally refused. That's one of the most important stories in that book. It's not understanding about will. It's a simile of life. For example, many people say that your life is like a journey, a bus journey. And you can imagine you're sitting on the seat of your bus. And there are times in your life you go through very difficult journey. You look out the window and there's rebellions and revolutions and police, and there is guns and bullets, and you see all the destruction around you. And what do you tell the bus driver to do? Get out quickly, this is dangerous. It's a very bad view outside of the window. And what does your bus driver do? Slams on the brakes and parks. And you find out, well, why does he do this? What's the solution? I want to get out of here quickly. And then later on, the bus driver does start moving and goes to some of the most beautiful scenery in the world. These beautiful meditation retreat centers with all the happy kangaroos bouncing up and down, and beautiful sunny days, but not too warm, and wonderful teachers and wonderful teachings, and you feel so happy, it's nice and kind and peaceful. And so you ask your bus driver, slow down, stop. And what does your bus driver do? Puts his foot on the accelerator and you go right through. Gerald, how many days have I been here? 9 days so far. How many days to go? How many more days have I got to go in Hong Kong? One more day. Is it gone fast? Would you like to put the foot on the brake and stay longer? Yeah. But can that happen? You wonder, why not? And so what you do is you get very fed up at the bus driver. This is life. You work really hard and you try to get it to all the good times to last longer, all the difficult times to go faster. And it's usually the opposite happens. So one day you decide, this can't be right. So you decide to go and find that bus driver and tell them off. First of all, is that bus driver a male or female? I don't know, because every time I hear this Google Maps, it's always a girl giving the orders. Is that true? It's okay. So you want to find out who this bus driver is and make sure you can teach that bus driver how to drive buses properly. Only have the good times. And if you are in a beautiful scenery through the bus window, you can tell them to slow down. I want to enjoy this as much as I can. please keep your feet off the brake pedals. And whenever you go through difficult times like sickness, disappointment, you want that to go quickly. So the only way you can tell this bus driver is to find them first. Where is the bus driver of the bus? You've got to get out of your seat, walk to the front, and get to the bus driver's seat to tell them how to drive a bus. And that's a simile of meditation. Who is your bus driver? Where is your will, your choice? Why is it you do research and you try and get all the information and you get as much information as you can and still the choice goes wrong? Why is that the case? I was telling some people. Now, of course, I've never been married. I'm a monk. You don't get involved in that, but it's kind of interesting for me why it is that some people have arranged marriages and they live quite happily. Other people, they go see somebody, they go out with them, they test drive, and then and it still doesn't work. Why is that? So your choice, what you choose to do, is always a little bit unreliable. So anyway, you've got to find that bus driver. And so the only place you can find that will, what makes the choices which guide your life? Why did you decide to come here for this 4 days? What decided? Who decided? And then, so that's what we do in deep meditation. We go very deep into our mind until we can find the bus driver. Go right up to the seat of the bus driver, deep inside of us, the source of your will and your choice. And that's when you get one of the shocks of your life. You know who the bus driver is? There is no bus driver. The seat is empty. There's no one there. That's freaky, but it's true. So what do you do when you see the bus driver's seat is vacant, just empty? There's no one there. What you do, you just go back to your seat and you stop complaining. It's just a waste of breath. Please slow down. Please go quickly. Please go left. Please go right. There's no one there's no one to shout to. So then you sit down in your bus and you're pretty safe. Sometimes it's a bit unpleasant. Sometimes it's pleasant. But welcome to life. But you stop wanting and not wanting anymore because there's no one to do the driving. But then people ask, well, Ajahn, why did I come on this retreat? You can actually see all the conditions, the reasons for that. The last time you came, and looking at reading books, looking at the internet, try all sorts of things to remedy the problems of life, and nothing works. And then you decide to come here, and it still doesn't work. But at least you find out why it doesn't work. At last you're getting wise. You know that sometimes people think that in meditation you can change everything and everything will be happy ever after. It's not really the outside world which is a problem. It's always our reactions to it. I remember this fellow just to ask Ajahn Chah, he said he was being drafted in the Thai army. And he was a Buddhist. He didn't want to shoot rifles or guns and point them at people and kill them. And said, Ajahn Chah, can you give me some advice how I can avoid going into the Thai army? And Ajahn Chah said, no, you go into the Thai army. You go there and you train, especially train when you're at the shooting range. Make sure you can shoot those guns and rifles accurately. Then in the battle, make sure you shoot over the opponent's head. So you're such a good aim, you never hit anybody. Because you know that generals or people in command, they don't know, you what the bullets in the gun, you're pointing it. They don't know actually who you're aiming at. So make sure you always miss. I kind of like that story because it kind of showed that it's a way. I don't tell anybody this. I get in trouble. Actually, I don't get in trouble because I'm leaving tomorrow. and Della and Gerald, no, you don't get into trouble because it's just a way that you can still be a Buddhist. You don't cause trouble for others. You can live in this world without causing too much unease. And so this is one of the ways which Ajahn Chah taught. So if somebody joins the army, and that's what they do, who chose to do that? That soldier never chose to do that. Ajahn Chah chose to do that. He influenced you. Why did you come here? Many of you have seen all this brainwashing on the internet from this monk called Ajahn Brahm and other monks, these chief brainwashers. And you're influenced. So sometimes when people ask me, why did I become a monk? Why did I become a monk? It's because all of those teachings which I read and heard, and all of there's also, of course, I was ready for that from previous lives as well. All of these things which actually sent you to be like this. And that's one of the reasons why I don't mind talking deep stuff, because I'm influencing you. And later on during your meditation, you'll get deep meditation and enjoy interesting things. Don't ever think that you did that. It's my fault. It's not really my fault. It was Ajahn Chah's fault, and his teacher's fault, and his teacher's teacher's fault. This is how the influence goes on and on and on and on and on and on. For those of you who are scholars, you will see that even to become a stream winner, one of the courses is the words of another. That's what it says, Paratagosa. And of course, what does that mean? That means, the words of a good teacher, another Aryan, who gives you those words, teaches you, influences you. And that's actually how you see the Dhamma. But what about the Buddha himself? Was the Buddha self-enlightened? Of course not. There was no self, so how can he be self-enlightened? No, it's deeper than that. Sometimes it's wonderful just being an academic or getting some academic credentials, because then you can look at some of these teachings. And some of these teachings, I was reading a book by a friendly Thai monk, and he was saying one of the difficulties he finds, with traditional Thai Buddhism is these 10 jatakas, especially the last one, Vesantara. And in the 10 jatakas, in each one, the Buddha builds up another parami. You know where these paramis came from? What happened is when we had the split between Theravada and Mahayana, and for me, the main reason was in Theravada, we always kept the old teachings that you have to become an arahant. But there's many teachers, they couldn't do it. They became senior, well respected, and so they started saying, well, no. There's another way. Be a bodhisattva. Put off your own enlightenment to help others. And one of the worst examples of that, I remember seeing in a book by this Alexandra David Neal. She went to Tibet a long time ago. And when she was in Tibet, she saw many times these monks, quite scandalous. What these monks did, and I'm a monk, so I can't disparage my own status. I am a monk. But anyway, these monks told the local villagers they'd been meditating so deeply, they were renouncing so much, they were very, very, very close to enlightenment. And the village in which they lived said, "Oh, Venerable, please don't practice anymore. We love you so much. We want you to come back in your next life to be our teacher. Would you like me to come back in next life to teach in Hong Kong? What have I done to you?" We can understand how they thought. And so the monk would say, "Well, I'm so close, I'll have to do something very, very bad not to get enlightened and come back again." And so the village elders would say, "Please, Venerable, do something very, very bad." Yeah, you got it. What's happening next? Well, it has to be really, really, really bad. I'll probably have to disrobe and get married. And they said, "Please choose whichever one of our lovely daughters you want, and she will look after it." It was a scam. Just the monk was not close to enlightenment. He was far away as you could ever be. But he had a lot of lust. He was getting bored, and he wanted to know, how can I live the rest of my life in happiness? What he thought was happiness. That's the trouble with monks. They've never been married before. They don't know what it's like having a wife. So anyway, so she saw many cases like that. Putting off your own enlightenment. You can't do that. It's impossible to put off your own enlightenment. Once you're a stream winner, that's it. You're out of here. Within 6 lifetimes more at the most. Did I get that right? Once you're a stream winner, how many more lifetimes do you have? How many more lifetimes do you have? See, how many of you have gone through Hong Kong University Buddhist Studies and graduated? It's a good job I was not the assessor. I'd have failed you. The answer is 6 more lifetimes. This lifetime is counted as number 1. The next one will be number 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. So only 6 more lifetimes. Okay, I know it's a trick question. It's early in the morning, but nevertheless. That's the other thing. It's nice to fail. If you all got it right, it won't be as much fun. It's off the subject, but why are people just so embarrassed to fail at something? It's just because of the strength of the sense of self. You think an ego, a self, has to be smart, has to be strong, has to be beautiful, has to be able to get up on time in the morning, has to not be fat if you're a monk, has to... That's nice not to, be the ideal. I know there was one monk, it's in the suttas. I have to forget his name now. I remember reading about him when I was very young. And I think this is actually why I put on weight. Because he said he was just so handsome that even when he ordained as a monk, there was many females fell in love with him. So he decided to be fat. Let's have a peaceful lifestyle. Good excuse, isn't it? But anyhow, trying to put off your enlightenment for others doesn't work. And anyway, if you were being taught, would you like to be taught by a fully enlightened being or someone who's put off their enlightenment? Make your choice. And otherwise, you'd be, if you got some sickness inside of you, would you like to be operated on by a trainee surgeon? It'd be much cheaper. Or the specialist is well regarded in the whole of Southeast Asia or East Asia. It's a specialist you want. That's one of the reasons why it's best to go all the way. So anyway, whenever we are meditating, we want to find out, why do we do these things? Who's in control? To really fully find out the answer to that driverless bus. Now, I said that so many years ago, before there were any driverless vehicles. And actually, when we started to have, Teslas and Google cars with no driver in the front, I thought, wow, I should have taken out, what do they call it, the rights, for that name, driverless car. Because you'll find out that was in my early talks, way before Google used that word. I could sue them. And I could pay off all the debts of Biff and get you a lovely meditation center in Hong Kong. No. Nevertheless, what happens is when each one of these insights, and the powerful insights, I don't mean the small ones now, who makes all these choices? Or rather, what makes all these choices? That's where, when you get very still in meditation, you get into these nimittas, these beautiful lights. And of course, once those lights, are beautiful to watch, but eventually the more still you are, the more beautiful they become. When they become really still, people have the experience of falling into those beautiful lights, or those lights just covering them. And then, right in the middle of those lights, you can't see any lights anymore. All that's left for you is the bliss, the amazing joy and happiness. And again, it's hard to get examples, but I did mention in brief yesterday that Anita Ajahn, does she still live in Hong Kong or did she go back to India? Okay. It's the USA. Okay. But anyhow, she described that experience, which was not done during meditation, but just after death, floating towards the light. It's just like being in heaven, being in the presence of God. Because I came from a Christian country, I had to learn Christianity, or some of it. One of the phrases in the Christian Bible I thought was very fascinating. It's in the Psalms. Be still and know that thou art God. It's in the Psalms. And I thought, wow, where did that come from? Because I agree with that. Not you are God. When you're still, it feels like you're with the supreme love, supreme sort of energy, power. This is, if you are a Christian, this is how you perceive the bliss of a first jhana. If you don't go further and you haven't got someone else who's been there so many times to tell you what it's about and how to look at it, that's how I'd imagine a Christian or a Muslim would feel. When I realized that, I thought, it's so disappointing. If any of you got a jhana, say Gerald got a jhana and it was confirmed, you'd have a school named after you, St. Gerald's Academy. Saint Visudachara's Hospital. And that's how high it's regarded. And so As a Buddhist, we realize, no, 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 don't make a certificate for it. You know why we don't make certificates to give to people if they have got a jhana or they're a stream winner? The reason is because there's nothing to pin it on. If we gave you a medal, there's no one there. So where can you hang the medal? You know why I haven't got one of these cards around my neck? Because I haven't got a neck. But anyway, so I love saying this because I enjoy saying it. And it's meaningful. Even in the first of the jhanas, what does it feel like? What are you experiencing? You don't see any lights anymore. You can't feel your body. I've already told you that often that people can do operations on you, or you can be underwater, or like that monk who was found in the forest in a jhana by lay people. This is a story from the Buddha's time. And they just put him on a pyre, lit the wood, and he was on the top of the pyre. They thought, we'd done their job, and they went away. And he came into the village the following morning on arms round. Not even his robe was burned. That's some of the miraculous things about these jhanas. Do you believe that, or is that superstition? Unfortunately, I've seen too much to think it's superstition. There's this one monk. I mentioned him already. He was an Indonesian monk. His name was Sudamo. I can say his name now because he passed away. And I met him. And as soon as you met him, I met him in Wat Buwon in Bangkok. And I remember I was with one of the monks from England, Ajahn. And I turned around to him and said, that monk's got a lot of power. And it was him, this Sudama. And so I sought him out and talked with him. And he was a monk. Before he was a monk, he was in Java. He decided to be a rishi, not to join any order, but just to go into the jungle, sit down and meditate. And the way he described his experience, I said the story already, the way he described his experience was he got very peaceful, and then he saw this star coming towards him. And he said he married that star. Now, straight away, don't think, married? What can that mean? It means he united with it. Now, he was Javanese. His English wasn't that good. But I know that when you get into some amazing experiences, it's hard to describe them. The language, all of our language is about the world outside. We've got so many different words, for, say, playing soccer or for politics or for theories. But the language about deep meditation has not really been developed in the English language. Sometimes I remember talking with Ajahn Brahmali. He's writing some wonderful books. He said, what's a good word, for jhanas? I said, the best English word for jhana is jhana. And you try and make a sort of an English translation of that, and you keep missing it. You kind of get close, but you can't really pinpoint it. So use what the Buddha said. Some of those old words, we do use those words, in English, and I'm sure in Chinese, words which you borrow, from other cultures, from other systems, other languages. But so it's hard to describe these things. So he said he married, and that's this star, this light. And then he didn't know, this is one of the other things, you have got no idea about time. You're free of time. You're not in the present moment, you're nowhere. So you don't know just what the clocks are doing. And that's brilliant. Even that little novice monk I said, who said, when is Ajahn Chah going to stop? When am I going to stop? And he stopped. What does that mean, stop? How can you stop? When the Buddha when Angulimala was chasing the Buddha and shouted at the Buddha, "Stop!" And then the Buddha replied, "I've already stopped. You stop." And Angulimala got it. He understood. This was from a Buddha, these words. And so he stopped and soon became fully enlightened by stopping. Can you get a feeling for what that word means, to stop? Stop chasing things, stop doing things. I'm going to come back to the will in a moment, but I cannot avoid telling the story here on this retreat. I don't think I've told it on this retreat yet. I must have told it somewhere on this visit about how donkeys catch carrots. There's a brilliant simile. And in the old days, I don't know in Hong Kong, but maybe I've seen it many times over in India and in the West. One of the main forms of transport would be the donkey cart. Because donkeys are very strong, but they're also very, very, very stubborn. So if you went to get a donkey to pull a cart, if you tell the donkey, "Okay, pull now," the donkey will refuse. I even remember as a kid hearing the synonym to be as stubborn as a donkey. And so this poor old donkey doesn't want to pull the cart, it won't. So how do you get the donkey to pull carts with people in, with rice in, or with grain in? It's very simple. Donkeys aren't afraid of pain or words, but they are very much motivated by desire. So that's why in the West, you have a stick tied to the donkey's. You don't beat the donkey with a stick, you tie it to its neck. So the front of the stick is 2 foot in front of the donkey's head. On the end of the stick, you put a carrot. If you tried this in Hong Kong, I don't know what you like, a mango? I know if it's in Penang, you always put a durian on the end of the stick. And then in Penang, the donkey sees the durian, on the end of the string, right in front of it. It cannot look up to see it's actually tied to a string, and the string is tied to a stick, and the stick is tied to the donkey's neck. It just sees a piece of durian. What does the donkey do? Moves towards the durian, starts pulling the cart. It likes the durian so much, it still pulls that cart, no matter how heavy that is. When the donkey moves towards the durian, he finds the durian moves away from it. And sometimes it pulls really hard and fast, and sometimes the durian is getting closer. The donkey tries even more to get the durian, and what happens? The durian starts moving away. Have you noticed the many things you aspire to in this life? You can see it. It's right there. You just move towards it, and it always moves away from you. Whether that's like true love, financial security, good health, it's like you're almost there, and then it goes away. And that's actually how you get people to do things in life. But once you see through that, and you come to a meditation retreat, or you just park the donkey outside, the donkey overhears how to catch durians. And it's so easy, so reliable. The donkey can get that durian or that carrot whenever it wants. Those of you who've been to Europe, have you seen donkey carts anymore? They don't exist anymore because Buddhism came to places like Poland. And so all the donkeys found out about how to catch the carrots. It's our fault. So simple. So what the donkey does in Poland, it sees the carrot right in front of it. Okay, it knows if it moves towards it, the carrot moves. But nevertheless, the donkey runs as fast as it can after the durian or the carrot. I don't think Polish I think maybe donkeys in Poland would run the other way. It smelt a jewel in front of it. And this actually happened over in Australia a few years ago. In Sydney University, they closed the university down. They thought it was a terrorist attack. And the reason was that one of the security guards, was walking past one of the buildings there, and he thought it was like a terrorist gas attack. He didn't know what it was. And they actually evacuated that building, closed down the university, and had a terrorist hazmat team, in full protective gear, to try and find out, was this really a terrorist attack? And so they followed the source of this gas to its source and found it in the student locker room. In one of the student lockers, there was a jewelry. They didn't know it was just a really smelly old jewelry, which was really emitting a stench. So the jewelry is well known now, and please don't keep it in your locker overnight, otherwise it might close down the whole university. But anyway, the donkey has a carrot in front of it in Poland, and it runs as fast as it can after that, but never gets close to it. But then the Buddhist donkey knows how to stop. Just like the Buddha told Angulimala, stop. Just like that little novice said, when am I going to stop? And stopped. What happens to the carrot? The carrot moves further and further away. In science, it's called momentum. So when the donkey stops, the carrot moves away. When I tell you to let go, don't do anything, you said, all these thoughts come into my mind. I get tired, I get sleepy. It's not working, Ajahn Brahm. Stop. And you know what happens? That carrot goes further away than it's ever been before. Your meditation just is terrible. You fall asleep. You keep thinking about all sorts of stuff, but then you don't do anything. You're not chasing the carrot anymore. And then you notice the carrot goes about 4 foot in front of you. And then it starts swinging in the opposite direction. It starts coming towards you. And soon you see that carrot in its normal position, 2 foot in front of your mouth. But now coming at top speed towards you. And it swings. You don't do anything. You just let it be. And it starts coming towards you. How many times have I told you on this retreat even, I never go looking for my breath. I calm down and the breath comes to me. I'm being honest. So it starts swinging right towards you. And as it starts swinging close to the donkey's mouth, the donkey remembers the last instruction, which is one of the most important instructions in meditation. The donkey has to look at that carrot and say, carrot, the door of my mouth is open to you. Loving kindness better. Because without that, what happens to the carrot? It bounces off your teeth and goes out again. Sometimes people get so close, they get nimittas, they get really close to jhanas, and because they don't know enough loving kindness, bliss, the door of my heart is open to you. It overcomes all fear. And so that carrot can come in. And that's how donkeys get the carrot. And in Malaysia, they get pieces of jewelry, and I don't know. Is mango the favorite fruit over in Hong Kong? Water, that's a really big thing to put in a donkey's mouth. It's huge. Watermelon. But anyhow, you know the idea. And so that's, you don't choose, you don't do, you learn how to be still. And when you're still, at first, all these beautiful states of meditation, and all the things you expected, even the ordinary meditation you may have enjoyed so far, tend to go further away from you. And many people think it's not working. Shh, stay still, don't move. Then after a while, you see what you thought was the goals of meditation, peace, happiness, joy, start to come towards you. And then there's always wonderful things in a meditator's life. All those things that you read in the suttas, you think were impossible in this day and age, they start to come towards you. But only if you're still. That was my simile. Ajahn Chah's simile, I'm going to say this one for two reasons. First of all, just how wonderfully accurate it is, but also because when I first heard it, I rejected it as stupid. This was the first year I went to Wat Pong, Ajahn Chah's monastery. And he started giving a talk. It was translated, so I didn't need to worry about, do I misunderstand this or not misunderstand this? And he said it was like his monastery, Wat Pong, he said was like a mango orchard. I said, this is not a mango orchard. It was a rainforest at that time. And he said, those mango trees have been planted by the Buddha 2,500 years ago. So Ajahn Chah said. And I said, no way. You know, the Buddha was not born in Thailand. He was born in Australia, as I said. This is stupid. So straight away I started rejecting this simile, but you had to stay there and listen to it. And said, and because they were planted by the Buddha, they're still alive today. And there's so many beautiful, delicious mangoes on those trees. But, he said, even though those beautiful, delicious mangoes are ripe, they're difficult to get. Just all these things like jhanas and insights, real insights, bliss, they're difficult to get. Not everyone gets them. Why? And he said, because you might, what they usually did in Thailand to get those mangoes, they'd like throw sticks up to knock them down, and then you go and pick them up from the floor. And if you climb the tree, you know, those mangoes are on the edge of the branches. You have to, you know, walk along the branches, and you probably fall off. You get a ladder, they're too high to get a ladder. And I started thinking, you know, we've got these like cherry picker machines over in the West. You get one of those cherry pickers or get one of these ladders from the fire department. They can go really high. And if that doesn't work, you can get helicopters to pick those mangoes. You know, that's as a Westerner, the sort of thing you do. You know, just you think you're much smarter. As if you can outsmart the Buddha. And of course you can't. So I said, the only way to get those mangoes, the only way, you can shake the tree, they don't fall off. The only way to get those mangoes from the trees planted by the Buddha is to sit perfectly still underneath the mango tree. Hold out your hand and a mango will fall into it. With greatest respect to Ajahn Chah, I thought that was really a dumb simile. You try that. Go sit under a mango tree. Hold out your hand. What will happen? If they do fall, more likely to fall on my head, not onto my hand. That was really dumb. So for years I rejected that. This is one of the reasons I tell that simile. I totally rejected it. It wasn't important enough to be remembered. But I didn't realize it had gone in. Maybe because it was from a great teacher like Ajahn Chah, something inside my mind remembered that. So when you started to get in some nice meditation, you started to understand it. Wow, what an amazing simile that was. And of all the books which I've read of Ajahn Chah's teachings, I had never seen it, recorded. I heard it. And that was one of the reasons why one of the books which I wrote, I put it in there. At least I wanted somebody to put it down in paper and ink for the future, even though you may think it's a stupid simile. Of course, what does it mean? The mango tree is like the beautiful experiences of jhanas, the beautiful experiences, memories of your past lives, the beautiful experiences of enlightenment. How do you become enlightened? You sit under the mango tree perfectly still, and you put your hand out, and it falls in. No, it can't be Ajahn Brahm. That doesn't make any sense. But it does. After a while, sitting perfectly still, that's like the samadhi, stillness, the jhanas. And the opening up your hand is like the loving kindness, the metta, which is also so, so important. The door of my heart is open to whatever falls in, especially when you're very, very still. Weird stuff, but amazing, totally safe. So that's actually what happens. But the hardest thing is you can open the door of your heart. Many of you do that, I've seen that. But actually to be perfectly still, that's the thing which people feel is too difficult. And so for many years I wondered, why? What are you afraid of? A lot of times people feel they're not ready to be enlightened yet. They're still, they think they've got commitments. Your main commitment is to happiness, peace, understanding what you're doing here in this world. Why did you get reborn? Why did you come on this retreat? Why did each one of you decide to take 4 days off? Some of you come from overseas. Some of you had to sacrifice quite a lot to come here. Don't mean money. I mean all the other things which you have to do. And sometimes you may think, oh, it's because I know this can solve some problems. You can get peaceful. You can get rid of cancers and stuff. You may feel a lot better. But it's much, much, much more than that. And as I was going to say earlier, you get experience, not just understanding by wisdom. If you want to know the Buddha's teachings intellectually, again, to go to Hong Kong University Center of Buddhist Studies. And you get to understand all the different stages of Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path. Do you really understand the Eightfold Path? Sometimes even ask the monks this. How many of you understand what suffering is? Do you know what suffering is? If you did, you can put your hand up as a stream winner. If you really understood it fully, congratulations, you're an arahat. And you can quote the Buddha saying that. It's only when I fully understood, fully, parinyatang, the complete knowledge of suffering, only then could I put my hand up and say I was fully enlightened. You know what that is? Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the very first sutta which the Buddha gave. And that's kind of humbling. Do you really understand suffering? Do you really understand anicca? There's so few people in this world understand what the Buddha meant by anicca. This afternoon I'll show you on the sutta class how the Buddha described anatta. not anicca, sorry. We assume we know, but we don't. That stops us being fully enlightened. You sit perfectly still under the tree and something falls in. Oh, wow, that's what it is. And so this is your personal understanding. So, a good way of understanding of why you are really a Buddhist. I've mentioned this before to you, that when I decided to become a Buddhist monk, I knew so little about Buddhism. Honestly, so little. I told my friends and relations, I'm only going to go to Thailand to become a monk for maybe 1 or 2 years. That should be enough time for me to become fully enlightened. Look, I was a smart guy. I finished my A levels, I was only 16. And I went to Cambridge on a scholarship. I was a whiz kid. So this Buddhism should be easy. I was so arrogant as a Quilo. I really was. And that's the amazing thing is seeing this Ajahn Chah. I'd only done 4 years at school. That's all he'd done. He never went to university. He was one of the smartest minds I've ever known. Anyhow, and some of all these lovely stories. I meant to tell this story. I can't resist now because it's in my head. I keep forgetting about it. This was actually from Thailand. There was, this really smart minister in the government under one of the kings a long, long time ago. And because he was so smart, the king really gave him lots and lots of duties. And the other ministers in the government got really jealous of him. So they met in private and they discussed, how can we get rid of this guy? And they said, yeah, he's very knowledgeable, but he's very, very proud. So they got this plan. And then the next morning, in front of the king, one of the other ministers said, this minister you have is such a wonderful person to have in your government. He's so wise. He's so smart. He's so reliable. He's got so many wonderful qualities. Even though, he's a lay person, works hard, I'm sure, he even has abilities such as be able to read people's minds. Is that so? And the minister said, yes, I can read minds. And they caught him because they'd planned this from the very beginning. They said, okay, read our minds. What are we thinking right now? And they'd already planned it and agreed. Whatever he says that I'm thinking, if I'm thinking about my family, if I'm thinking about the economy, that we will say no. How can you prove what another person is thinking? So they thought they got him. They caught him. But he said, I know what all you ministers are thinking. Prove it. Said, all your ministers are thinking loyal and patriotic thoughts to His Majesty. Amazing. Yes, it's true. So, that was a really wise minister. Don't know if that was true. I don't care if it was true. I never allow, actually I do allow the truth to stand in the way of a good story, but that's a wonderful little story. Apparently it happened, but nevertheless, if it did or didn't, it's worthwhile telling you. But anyhow, that when you get into even the first deep meditation, the first jhana, what does it feel like? What do you experience? All you experience is just be still and know that thou art bliss. I don't want to confuse you by saying God or anything. Know you know you're experiencing bliss. There's no idea of something, experiencing something, is a unity of mind. The ekagata. It's not one pointedness of mind. That's not what ekagata means. It's not ekagata. It's ekagata. One summit of mind. One peak of the Agra, like in Agra, the capital of Mughal India. Now you've been to Agra, many of you, I hope. The Red Fort, the Taj Mahal in Agra. That's what it's called, Agra, the capital, the summit. And that's what Ekagata means, the one summitness of the mind. These are not just one pointedness, but peaks of perception. So that in those, you don't experience anything, you are the experience. There's no sense of me doing anything. That's also why someone like Anita Murajani would say she vanished. The idea of you perceiving something had gone. It's just the perception's just there. And what is that perception? When you're in those deep meditations, you can't sort of analyze anything. Because you can't stand back to see. You're right inside of it. So how do you know what's happening? When you're inside, you don't need to worry about anything. You're enjoying it too much. But when you come out afterwards, you've got this perfect recall. And I mean perfect recall. The memory is just the incident. I still haven't got a better word, traumatic. You can't get it out of your head. It's so intense awareness. So afterwards you realize that the only thing you're experiencing was bliss. It's just the perception, the mind experiencing bliss. Not moving. Actually, the first jhana does move slightly. But the experience, this is what kind of freaked me out the first time I read it. The Buddha said that one is Pawaweka Sukha, like really separation from the five senses, happiness. But he also described it as Sambodhi Sukha. That's what you're experiencing in the first jhana. Sambodhi Sukha. You don't need to write it down, it's in all the books. Sambodhi Sukha. Sambodhi Sukha. What does that mean? Sambodhi. Enlightenment. You aren't enlightened yet, but you're experiencing enlightenment happiness. It's your first taste of enlightenment. It's only taste. Just like when you go to lunch, you haven't had the full meal yet. You can taste it. And each one of you can do that. This afternoon, this evening, tomorrow, or some other day, is available for you. You want to know what enlightenment is like. Don't study it. Experience a taste of it. Ooh. It's just like, I don't know, how many of you have seen the Buddha's holy sites? What are the Buddha's holy sites? You're getting smarter and smarter. Well done. Because you know it's a trick question. You're getting to know me by now. The four Buddhist holy sites, they usually say Lumbini, where the Buddha was born, Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha was enlightened, Sarnath, the deer park, where the Buddha gave his first talk, and Kusinara, where the Buddha passed away into Parinibbana. And to be able to go to those four holy sites, it's a long way to India. And you have to go through all these airports and take all this luggage and make sure you're inoculated from all these diseases. And when I went there, you're only in buses on dirt roads. And if you need to go to the toilet, we all stopped every couple of hours. You have to go behind a bush. The men on one side of the road, the girls on the other side of the road, to evacuate yourself. There's no toilets at that time. It was so difficult. I remember just going in a train journey once, and everybody had their luggage there, and on the opposite side of the train, on the rail side, not on the platform side, a few of these, they were like basically robber gangs, banged so hard on the train carriage, made such a noise, just bang. And everybody looked around, what's happening? And that's when the robbers put their hands through the open windows and took your suitcases. Fortunately, we were warned about that. So when they made the bang, we were still looking at the windows. Poor robbers were upset. Actually, it wasn't a very good Buddhist thing to do, was it? Make the robbers upset. But anyhow, but these days, you don't need to go to India to see the 4 Buddhist holy sites. The real Buddhist holy sites. The places where the Buddha spent all his time, most of his time, were not in India, not in Australia. We're in those 4 jhanas. If you want to go and visit the 4 Buddhist holy sites, first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, you're going to the place where the Buddha hung out. Now you feel what the Buddha was like. Even the first jhana, enlightenment, happiness, the taste of it. Just getting the first one. The next ones are much easier once you've got to the first. You get a taste of how it works. So these are available for you. And I teach this, again, because I was rebellious. Because in the time of the Buddha, people got these jhanas in those days. Why not you today? No reason why not. And I also teach like this because I went traveling and, as a monk, and went to Vietnam. And in Vietnam, that's where I heard that the United Vietnamese Sangha, many years ago, they've reneged on this now. They made a rule that the monks could not teach the lay people jhana. It was forbidden. Why? It's too much work, they said. No, they've gone back on that now. Now they can. And I thought, what on earth did you do that for in the first place? That's one of the reasons why, I mentioned that. You can do that, so please help me prove them wrong. Okay, I've already gone over time. But that's to be expected. I always go over time. You got used to that by now. So thank you for listening. I expect some questions in the box. Actually, I've already got too many questions already, but anyway, we'll see what we can do. So thank you again for listening, and happy jhana. So sit perfectly still, hold out your hand and see what happens.